A long time ago, in a podcast studio not that far away. Welcome to Dippy Does It All, the show where curiosity meets chaos, and I boldly go. Wait, that's the wrong franchise. It's May the 4th, baby! So naturally, we're cracking open the holocron, summoning the midichlorians, and probably upsetting a few fanboys along the way. And I've got a very special guest in the studio today, my co-pilot for this hyperspace journey we call life, the one, the only, Jackie!
Hello, everyone. I may not have Jedi training, but I do have very strong opinions and a lightsaber from Target. So I'm ready.
Perfect. We're talking Star Wars in the most chaotic, non-linear, possibly blasphemous way possible. There will be hot takes, weird theories, and probably a rant about sand. So grab your blue milk, strap in, and may the Force forgive us. It's Dippy Does It All, Star Wars Day Edition. I'm thinking, Jackie, that there's probably some friends listening that aren't as into Star Wars as us. And I also know we have friends that are way more into Star Wars than us.
So true.
So maybe we just set up the setting of what Star Wars is and give them a little bit of a background. Star Wars takes place in a galaxy far, far away. A vast, fictional universe filled with planets, starships, alien species, droids, and mystical powers. The main storyline revolves around the conflict between the Jedi, good force, and the Sith, bad force. But there's also an endless supply of political intrigue, family drama, and intergalactic warfare. So it's perfect. I know that a lot of people are going to be surprised by this, but I hadn't watched Star Wars until I started hanging out with you. And I know it's surprising to people because I've got the shirts and the shoes and the action figures, all the movies, watched them multiple times now, but I hadn't seen it until you had come into my life. Tell the fans how you ended up getting into Star Wars.
Well, I started watching Star Wars in 3rd grade, and I have a younger brother, and my parents were building a new house. So they took my brother and I to Best Buy, and we were bored out of our minds looking at all the electronics they needed for this house. So my brother and I went into, they had this huge room, just covered 3 walls, covered with what felt like thousands of TVs, I'm sure at the time. Probably not quite that many.
And they were probably 32 inch.
They were not huge at the time.
We thought they were
This
huge.
was 1987 at the time. And they were playing Star Wars. I loved the Ewoks. My brother loved the lightsabers. So we actually got along for that 45 minutes that we were sitting in there. And all the Best Buy employees kept popping in, just making sure we weren't creating chaos. But I started at a young age, really enjoyed it. Did have a younger brother who was into the good versus evil. So we would watch the movies, the original ones, and then the new ones when they came out. So when I met you, I was shocked you hadn't seen them. And I thought, you needed a sibling growing up, because had you had a younger brother, you probably would have watched Star Wars, because all the boys at the time were watching.
It's interesting considering I hung out with most of the boys in the neighborhood, but none of them were into it. So we just didn't watch it. Or if they were, they didn't talk about it. Let's deep dive a little bit more into Star Wars and some of the themes. We've got the Force, which is at the heart of Star Wars. It's an energy field that binds all living things together, and it has 2 sides. The light side, used by the Jedi, which focuses on selflessness, peace, and balance. And then you have the dark side, used by the Sith, driven by passion, anger, and desire for power. Those who can tap into the Force gain special abilities like telekinesis, mind control, and heightened physical senses. Jedi and Sith are trained to harness and wield the Force in combat. We've got key themes in Star Wars. Good versus evil. The central theme is the struggle between good and evil, often represented by the Jedi versus the Sith. The Jedi fight to protect peace, while the Sith seek to dominate and control. You have family, the Skywalker family, made up of Luke, Anakin, and Leia, and it's the center of the saga, and the family drama plays out in unexpected ways throughout the movies. You have redemption. Many characters experience a fall to the dark side. Spoiler, Anakin Skywalker. And they are given chances for redemption. We also have rebellion and revolution. Various factions in the galaxy, like the rebels and the resistant, rise up against oppressive regimes like the Empire and the First Order.
I associate with good versus evil. I am a very black and white person, and I see things as right or wrong, yes or no, good or evil. So to me, it was very easy for me to get drawn into the different sides because there was kind of a line dividing the characters. And the neat part about that is there is that redemption arc. And so it was good for me as a child watching to realize, yes, you can look at things as good and evil, but they're not necessarily always going to be an evil character. There was evil things that they did, but they were able to redeem themselves to become good. Was there a key theme that you thought, I like these movies because of the family?
Oh, for sure. That's a really good question. I would say, for me, what I liked the most would be that rebellion versus the revolution. I like the fact that people were feeling oppressed and they stood up for what they believed in. And I really, really just like epic space battles. And lightsabers are colorful. And there's weird talking and little creatures and bright lights and vibrant colors. That's really what did it for me, I believe. And I would say that I liked the Star Wars movies when you first showed them to me. And we were watching them leading up to Episode 7, which is the one that I love the most. And that came out in 2015. And I didn't deep dive in my love for Star Wars until I saw that movie, and I got to see BB-8. That's really what drew me into Star Wars. That's why when you asked the question, I'm like, what? Is there one that I love? I didn't realize you didn't already have the answer. Because normally you know more about what I have going on than I do.
I was just curious because I couldn't pick one for you. But I should have just known you like epic space westerns.
Yeah.
And the color orange. So I should have been able to put those together and come up with the answer. So now our viewers can learn that as well.
That's probably why they call me Dippy, because I'm not as deep as people would think. I love that. We've got a couple more things we can break down here of these themes and get a little more in depth. When we're talking about the rebellion and the resistance, there's a few things that I didn't really consider. The rebellion, also called the Rebel Alliance, was mainly featured in the original trilogy. The main enemy they faced was the Galactic Empire, led by Darth Vader and Palpatine. The goal was to restore the Republic and take down the Empire. Key players: Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Admiral Akbar. Is that Mon Mothma?
Yes, Mon Mothma.
And they are ragtag freedom fighters going up against a massive space dictatorship. Think underdogs with X-Wings. And those X-Wing fighters are really cool looking. It made a really awesome Lego set, too, let me tell you.
It did. And a great ride at Disney World.
The Resistance was in the sequel trilogy, and the main enemy was the First Order. The goal was to stop the First Order from replacing the Republic again. Key players: General Leia again, Poe Dameron, Finn, and Rey. Those characters are really, really fresh and exciting. And the vibe was a small guerrilla group working outside the New Republic because no one believed the threat was real. Basically Rebellion 2.0, but with fewer resources and more BB-8. In short, the rebellion fights to bring back democracy, and the resistance fights because democracy got lazy again. What do you do? What do you do?
Which, all these movies are still applicable in our political climate. So
yeah, it's
kind of
just
interesting
crazy
how they did that so long ago.
It's probably how they got most of their material.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
All right, folks. I've got a sponsor that's going to buzz right into your life and give you more gossip than you ever signed up for. I'm talking about whisper bees. The bees that know more secrets than your nosy neighbor with the binoculars. Yeah, these bees don't just pollinate. They pollute your life with all the gossip you didn't know you needed. Now, you might be sitting here thinking, Dippy, why do I need bees to gossip? Well, let me tell you, these are whisper bees. They know everything. You want to know who's secretly texting their ex? The bees know. You want to find out who's been taking the last piece of pizza in the fridge? Oh, the bees definitely know. And don't even get me started on the work bathroom. You know that mysterious poop streak that's been haunting the toilet for weeks? The bees know who did it. Yeah, Greg from maintenance, you're officially busted. We all know it was you. And here's where it gets real good. These bees are not like your average loud buzzing bees that try to take over your barbecue. Oh, no. They're whispering quietly like true professionals. They're like Sherlock Holmes. If Sherlock Holmes was a bee and into spicy gossip. And hey, here's the best part. You get to be in on it too. If you head over to whisperbees.com right now and use the code DippyDrama, you'll get 20% off your order. That's 20% off the bees, who will not only pollinate your garden, but also leave you so in the loop, you'll be the first to know who's really been double dipping the guac at the work party. They see you, Stuart. So don't wait. Head to whisperbees.com, grab yourself some Whisper Bees, and start collecting all that sweet, sweet gossip. Who's secretly wearing socks with sandals? Who's been stealing your favorite pens? The bees will tell you. Whisper Bees. They know more drama than your best friend, your mom, and that one coworker who shows up uninvited and starts fights about politics at the party.
More breakdowns. You might be wondering, what the heck is a Jedi or a Sith? A Jedi is the light side of the Force. Their philosophy is peace, selflessness, knowledge, and harmony. Weapons, lightsabers, usually blue or green in color, but they'll talk first. They're not big into fighting right away. They have rules like no attachments, no fear, no emotions. They're basically space monks.
So the way you said that is they'll talk first. I thought you meant the lightsabers were talking. I was like, did I sleep during that part? I don't remember that. But yes, you mean the Jedis will talk first before getting their lightsabers.
Yeah,
out.
I love that. Some of them will talk backwards too.
Also true.
Yeah. You've got famous Jedis like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Luke Skywalker, and Ahsoka. Pretty cool. The Sith are with the dark side of the Force. Their philosophy is power, passion, control, and domination. Their weapons are red lightsabers and an endless supply of drama. These are the mean girls of the Galactic Force. They have rules, 2 at a time, master and apprentice. They betray each other constantly. And famous Sith, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Darth Maul, and Count Dooku.
Who was originally a Jedi.
I'm telling
See,
you.
you can switch sides anytime you want.
Exactly. So in short, Jedi want balance and peace, but they often cause chaos by accident. And the Sith want control and power and are very dramatic about it. I would agree with that.
Yes, I would too. Good synopsis.
I like it so much too. All right. We can talk about the Galactic Empire and the First Order.
Let's do
the
it.
difference between those. The Galactic Empire, quote, "We crushed the Republic, now we're your problem." It was in the original trilogy, founded by Emperor Palpatine after manipulating the Clone Wars. He took over a broken republic and turned it into an authoritarian regime. The main villain, Darth Vader, a space dad with anger issues. Their goals were total control of the galaxy, erase Jedi, rebels, and freedom in general. They used oppression through military might, bureaucratic control, and the Death Star, a planet-sized laser with moon cosplay. This is perfect. Their style is gray everything, British accents, and I'm skipping that last one. Their downfall: rebels blew up both Death Stars, Vader flipped sides, and the Emperor took a long, dramatic fall.
You simplified 3 movies in like 4 sentences.
Yeah, isn't that great?
It's impressive.
Way to prepare. The First Order, quote, "Let's try evil again, but with more chrome." And we're not talking about the internet webs. First Order is in the sequel trilogy, founded by ex-Imperials hiding in the unknown regions. The origin story, Empire 2.0, reorganized, rebranded, and resentful. Main villains, Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Snoke, and surprise, Palpatine. Their goals were to destroy the New Republic, bring back fascist space vibes, and help Kylo Ren work through his feelings. They may or may not have been unsuccessful. They had the tactics of kidnapping kids for stormtroopers, Starkiller Base, a planet that eats stars, very subtle, and they unleash chaos while arguing about whose cape is cooler. So good. They are sleek and shiny. They have scarier stormtroopers, and PowerPoint presentations probably involve yelling. Kylo turned good-ish. Resistance lit them up, and Palpatine tried to launch Final Order, but no. I think that's a really good summary. And a lot of spoilers. Now nobody's going to have to watch the movies if they haven't seen them.
There's no need. Just listen to this.
Exactly. We've mentioned it a multitude of times already in these breakdowns, but BB-8 is for sure my favorite character. And Baby Yoda, also known as the child, or Grogu, is your favorite.
It is right now, yeah.
And they are two of the most beloved characters in the Star Wars universe. They bring their own unique charm to the galaxy. Do you want to break down these two adorable icons and why they've captured our hearts?
I would love to. Should we start
Awesome.
with BB-8?
Yeah, let's do it. So BB-8 was in Star Wars The Force Awakens, which I've said is my favorite. He's an astromech droid. He's in the Resistance. He has a personality that's curious, loyal, and extremely expressive for a ball-shaped robot. BB-8 is always there to lend a beep boop of support to Rey and the Resistance, helping in crucial missions and adding a lot of humor and heart to the story. BB-8 is a rolling droid with a head that stays balanced atop its spherical body, which is super cool and unique. It can communicate through beeps, chirps, and adorable little whirs. And while humans can't always understand him, his emotions and intentions are clear as day, especially when he's upset or pleased. It's also really tech savvy, which is what I think resonates the most with me. BB-8 can repair things, open doors, and even hack onto systems. He's basically the R2-D2 of the sequel trilogy. One of his most notable moments, his secret stash of little flame-throwing tools and his relationship with Poe Dameron. It's a chef's kiss.
I want to know why you like BB-8.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Well, I think really because he's orange.
I think you fell in love with him before you even saw the movie.
Yeah, I did. I really like that it was done practical. I'm big into how films are made and the practical effects of the actual droid rolling through all the scenes. That's really cool to me. They didn't do any of that with CGI. And I know they had a lot of trouble, and this is where the sand comes in, because some of the scenes where they're out in the desert and they've got that sand environment kept breaking down the robot.
Aww.
But instead of saying, screw it, we'll do it in post-production, they just kept working through the issues, redesigned the robot to be able to go through that environment. I think some of it entailed a person pushing it, but either way, it's still really cool. And I think he reminds me kind of a puppy dog.
He does.
Kind of following around Rey and Poe Dameron. He interacts with them with his little noises. It's cute.
And he seems happy when he's around his people.
Definitely. And it's really cute when he gets mad, too.
He is adorable.
Yeah. I think that's why I like him, though. And he's orange.
Yep. I mean, always a win.
Yeah, definitely a win.
And I've always loved the droids, starting with the original ones that were made. So C-3PO and R2-D2 were the classics, and I absolutely loved them. And this felt like a really good and fun upgrade when they made the newer movies.
Yep. Dishes are done.
They are.
I love it. They're probably like, what is that beeping? And also my chair's a little
I
squeaky.
know, I keep moving mine too.
We're gonna need studio upgrades.
You get to your 7 podcasts, we'll talk.
Okay. Well, you love Baby Yoda. So I want you to talk about Baby Yoda.
I fell in love with Baby Yoda, or Grogu, And he had his first appearance in a TV show. So Disney Plus came out and started making shows, and he was in The Mandalorian back in 2019. And his species, he's actually related to Yoda. I don't know that we know the name of his species,
I don't think
but
so.
they are definitely the same.
Yeah.
He's just a little younger. The one thing we do know is that they age differently than us. So Yoda is hundreds and hundreds of years old. He has seen everything. So the expectation is that Grogu, while looking like a baby, has possibly been around for quite some time, which I just think is interesting. He doesn't really have an affiliation. He does love The Mandalorian, as the show turns out, so you see a little bit more of that. What I like about him is his personality. So he's just like baby Yoda. He's just like a little guy. He's adorable, he's curious, he's mischievous. He has all these incredible powers, which he uses to save people and also to go steal eggs and frogs and eat things. So it's just really cute because he loves to snack. He loves to sleep. Two things I love, right? Who doesn't want to do those things? He's a Force-sensitive child. He has some serious potential, but he still, because of his age, acts like a baby. So he's in that baby carrier. He doesn't always know how to use his power. Sometimes it comes unexpectedly when he needs to save someone. But he's also very little. He's got those big eyes, the big ears. He just looks so cute. I don't know. I just think he's adorable. I think they do it on purpose. I think they make him really cute so he reminds you of a baby. Kind of like BB-8 and the puppy dog, so that it gathers those like instinctual beliefs where you want to go take care of them.
He is the heart and soul of the show, though. It's incredible they were able to keep it under wraps, his design, before the show
for
came
so
out.
long, because no one knew it was coming until it was actually released and people were able to watch it.
Yep.
Which is really fun. And I love that while your BB-8 is a practical and able to come out, we were at Disneyland several years ago, and Mando was actually out with baby Grogu, and I think that's so fun. And granted, it's a puppet, but it was interacting with people, and it was in his little satchel, so it was just really cute to be able to see him out and about too.
That was really cool. I love that we like both of those. They definitely viral hits.
Absolutely, yes.
So we're recording this today on May 4th, and a lot of people will say, "May the 4th be with you." And you might wonder why people do that. So let's start with a history lesson. May the 4th didn't always have the same significance as it does today. It all goes back to 1979 when Margaret Thatcher became the UK Prime Minister. On that day, a newspaper headline read, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie." It was a play on the iconic Star Wars phrase, "May the Force be with you." But it wasn't until years later that fans caught on and started celebrating the date as Star Wars Day. Fast forward to 2011, and Lucasfilm officially recognized it as Star Wars-themed celebration. And since then, it's grown into one of the biggest fan-driven holidays in pop culture. Pretty interesting.
I love that the fans made their own holiday, and everyone's heard of it. Everyone goes, "May the 4th be with you."
Yeah. And you have a shirt on.
I do have a shirt on. It has my favorite character, Baby Grogu, and it actually says, "May the 4th be with you." It may be from 2022, but you wear it once a year. It's perfect to bring out this time.
Almost definitely you can. Star Wars has had a lot of influences on things. It's been a cultural phenomenon. George Lucas introduced us to the galaxy far, far away in 1977, and who knew at that time it would revolutionize filmmaking, storytelling, and fandom. First, the visuals. The original trilogy had groundbreaking special effects for its time. Can you remember the first time you saw the Millennium Falcon?
I do. It was in Best Buy with 300 TVs.
I mean, I watched it on the movies, but when we went to Disney and we walked around the corner and it was sitting there, it was pretty crazy.
It just gives you goosebumps. It is so iconic, and for me, so much nostalgia from watching it from when I was so young.
Yep. And watching the X-Wings and dogfights, so cool. They used practical effects, models, and miniatures to create the ships, and they still do that today, which is crazy. And then this one, you love this part. John Williams' iconic score.
Yes.
It's now synonymous with adventure, heroism, and the Force itself. From the opening crawl to the final battle, it's hard to imagine Star Wars without that music.
No, I don't think it would be nearly as iconic. John Williams has made so many movies famous for just listening to the soundtrack, and you can hear a few tracks and you get that feeling. And Star Wars to me is exactly like that. You're sitting in the theater, you're excited for the movie to start, nothing's on, everything goes black, and you hear the music start, and you automatically know you're going to have a fun time.
Yep.
But look at the Darth Vader, the music that they have associated with each character. That's synonymous with evil, and you hear that at pet bands, you hear it at football games, you hear it all sorts of places.
Yeah.
And it's just taken over our culture. And everyone knows it. You might not know Star Wars, but you know that music.
I think mostly why that is because you have ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's a story that hits with a lot of people. Because when you're living your life, you think, well, this person did this, but I probably can't. Well, no. These stories will tell you time and time again, you can do crazy things if you put your mind to it.
Stand up for what you believe.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think why people like it. And then they dressed it up really cool.
Also true. The characters, the entire world that he created is just absolutely amazing to me. You could delve in and still never catch all of the details.
Exactly. Let's make you galactic experts. Here are some fun facts to impress your friends with during May the 4th celebrations. The original Star Wars film almost didn't get made. The movie had a notoriously difficult production with technical challenges, budget issues, and skeptical actors. In fact, many of the cast members thought it would be a total flop.
Oh, no. Well, they were wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mark Hamill thought for sure this is going to ruin my career. I'm a weird character in this movie, and he was looking for jobs quick before it came out because he was worried that it would ruin his ability to work.
And all three of those main characters were so beloved that this launched their careers.
Yeah, exactly. You almost wonder what would happen if they wouldn't have.
Yeah,
You know?
they had.
This one I thought was really fun. Yoda was originally supposed to be played by a monkey.
What?
George Lucas thought about using a trained monkey with a mask before deciding the iconic puppet we all know and love. How would you even do that?
Oh, that would be so different.
Yeah,
I'm very glad he chose not to do that.
exactly.
As a lover of Yoda and all things related to Yoda, that would have made me sad.
Yeah, exactly. What the heck? They made the lightsaber sound by mixing TV static and a projector hum.
Oh, weird.
It's so interesting if you think about it.
That's so simple, and it's such a unique, specific sound. That's
Yeah.
another thing you hear and you know exactly what it is.
Yep, exactly.
But who knew that's what it was?
Dipstick, play the sound. Chewbacca's voice is a mix of animal sounds. His roars and grunts are a combination of bears, walruses, lions, and badgers, which is what you'd expect from a space dog man.
I just want to pause and point out for a moment here that Dippy is actually dressed like Chewbacca today, and it is epic.
Yeah, check the Instagram. I got a picture. And I have my hat on too. Battle of Yavin. You got to represent on May the 4th. Let's keep with the sound facts. Darth Vader's heavy breathing was created by a scuba tank.
What?
Yep. Ben Burt again recorded himself breathing through a scuba regulator to create the ominous sound.
That's one of my favorite parts about Darth Vader, his deep voice and the breathing. Because it just sounds ominous and kind of scary.
Yeah, exactly. Darth Vader is only on screen for 12 minutes in A New Hope.
That doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
I was terrified of him as a child. 12 minutes was all.
Yep. I wonder, though, if you think about Jaws, how long, you should Google how long Jaws was in the movie. Because you hear the music and you see people getting ripped from the surface of the water. But I feel like he wasn't in the film very long. But I don't want to misspeak.
Oh, well, I Googled how long was the shark in Jaws, and then I got he's 25 feet. So let me re-Google to get the actual question that I want.
Dang it, Google.
Okay, let's try this again. Do you think it is greater or less than the 12 minutes that Darth Vader was in Star Wars?
Less.
Way less. The shark in Jaws was only on screen for 4 minutes.
See, and I was going to guess 6, but I didn't
Wow.
want to. Yeah.
That is like a shockingly small amount of time.
So it's exactly that same thing. I would argue that that movie, Jaws, is so much more impactful because he's not on screen very long. Yeah. Your brain will tell you something is way scarier than watching it play out. At least I feel that way.
Would actually have been. And then you add the music from John Williams also. And
Yep. So I think the 12 minutes is why he is so iconic.
And
if
so
he was
scary.
in there all the time, you'd get tired of him.
Yeah.
I just realized you clipped your microphone. The magnet goes under the shirt.
Well, clearly I'm a novice. Pause. I'm going to go switch my mic. Are you supposed to do it?
The magnet comes off.
Oh, it's a magnet, not a clip?
Well, there is a clip, but...
So I thought that was just like the world's worst clip. So I was like, oh, maybe I should have let you have a little more money to buy a nicer mic. It was actually a magnet. Lesson learned.
It is so funny. There's a point in the movie where a stormtrooper hits his head, and that was actually a blooper, but it made George Lucas laugh so much he just left it in, and then later they added the sound effects. That's pretty great.
Well, it kind of fits in with their personalities because in the original trio, they were terrible shots.
Yep.
So I could see how they would not be able to see with those helmets and just whack their heads.
Yep. And they'd be idiotic enough to do so.
Yeah. Or were they terrible shots because they all had concussions because they kept hitting their heads?
It probably is.
Let's start spreading that as a rumor. It can be canon now.
Yep. They have concussions. It's truth. If you hear it here, it's truth. The character Jabba the Hutt took 6 people to operate.
Ew.
1 person for the eyes, another for the mouth, someone inside the tail. He was basically a space slug parade float. I love that. This is something I didn't know. E.T. is in the Star Wars canon. In The Phantom Menace, a group of E.T.-like aliens are seen in the Galactic Senate. We'll have to look for that next time.
I need to go rewatch.
Yeah.
I think we should pause and go watch. So George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are really good friends and kind of visit each other's on set.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was an homage to his buddy.
Had to been.
That is really
It's
fun.
the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
The quote, "I have a bad feeling about this," is said in every Star Wars movie. It's a running gag and a fan favorite.
I never put 2 and 2 together. I knew they said it a lot, and I always liked hearing it. But I didn't know it was in every single one.
Yep, every single one. And one of the most iconic Star Wars quotes, "I am your father," was actually a misquote. The original line was, "No, I am your father." But people will misquote it as, "Luke, I am your father," in pop culture.
I never knew that.
Yep.
I always thought they said Luke.
Nope.
I'm also terrible at hearing things and knowing what they said. So, like song lyrics and I do not get along. But I was one of those that thought Luke was what was said.
Your song lyrics are my favorite, though.
Yeah, that's how I hear things.
Now we have deep cut facts. Luke's original last name was Starkiller, but George Lucas changed it because Killer wasn't as heroic for a space farm boy.
You know, that is kind of true.
Yep.
You don't want your hero to be called Killer.
So he repurposed the name for the Starkiller base in The Force Awakens.
Oh,
He didn't want it to go.
I did not catch that.
Lightsaber colors aren't just for looks. They're based on the kyber crystals Jedi use, and the color reflects the personality. Blue is a warrior guardian. Green is a wise consular. Purple, Mace Windu's lightsaber. Balance of light and dark. And red, corrupted by the dark side. Sith literally bleed the crystals.
I did hear that. So they start with like a blue or a green crystal, and the evil within the Sith turns it red, which I think is interesting. But I also heard a rumor, and this was 25 years ago, so we'll see if it's true or not. We could probably confirm it, that Mace Windu only had a purple lightsaber because Samuel L. Jackson wanted to stand out on screen and insisted on having a different color. So that was what I remember from reading way back when those first came out.
That is for sure true. I've heard that too.
Oh, so it probably is true. But his character does have that balance of light and dark. So I think that was an interesting way to make that a canon color, because I know that he kind of rides the line in between the two.
And then we got to go to Disney, and you got me that experience where I got to build a lightsaber, and I wanted to build a purple one. And it was so fun. When that thing lit up, I almost teared.
Disney allowed an extra person to come in, and so I got to go watch the experience, and I did tear up.
Yeah.
There was something about the way they made that experience where everyone held their lightsabers up and turned them on for the first time, and they had really neat music in the room, that it felt real.
Yeah.
Like, I realize we're not going to go off killing people with our lightsaber, but it felt like the Kyber crystals were talking to us.
Mm-hmm. And then when we went into the gift shop, you were able to rein me in, but
that is not an easy task.
we had learned that you can get the different colored Kyber crystals, and then you can put them in your lightsaber and it'll change the colors. And of course I wanted to have one of every color, but they had told us that there is a very rare black one, and you don't know when you're going to get a black one inside the red Kyber crystal packaging. And I wanted to basically buy the entire box, but Jackie said I could only get one, and I did not get a black one, which is very disappointing.
I can only imagine how many Kyber crystals we would own if you kept going until you got a black one. We would still be there trying to find one.
We could give them out every Halloween.
Come to this house, folks. We're giving out crystals.
Here's a red Kyber crystal for a lightsaber you may or may not have.
Probably don't own.
Then the best part is, Angie always makes fun of me when people go on trips. I'll sometimes ask them if they can pick stuff up for me. And they have the holocron that you can buy. And we didn't know when we were there how special that was. Here's the cool holocron. And Tessa was going to Disney, and she was amazing and picked me up a holocron, and that made the Kyber crystals even more fun. She did get me another red one trying to get a black, and spoiler, it was red again. But that's really fun. This is a great one for film buffs, and particularly Criterion fans, but George Lucas based the Jedi on samurai. The robes, the discipline, and lightsaber duels are directly inspired by Japanese cinema, especially Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, which is credited as being the major influence on A New Hope. And we do have that movie. I haven't watched it yet, but we should.
We need to watch that. I always like to see what gives inspiration to some of my favorite movies and kind of pick out some of those pieces.
Exactly.
And that makes perfect sense because they're great at doing martial arts, but they also do have the robes and are calm. I never put two and two together, though.
Exactly. A lot of people think Boba Fett, who is fantastic, I love it, but they think that he showed up in Empire Strikes Back for the first time, but he actually appeared in the Star Wars Holiday Special, which came out before the Empire Strikes Back. He was in that animated segment. It's pretty nuts.
I think that's what's so great about Star Wars, though, is that the world is so big that there's things that you have no idea even exist.
Yeah.
Because I know that's something people talk about all the time, that Christmas holiday special, and I've never seen it.
Yep. Oh, our house just flushed the toilet, as Dennis would say.
Yeah, the sump pump went off.
Yeah, we needed a new studio. Time to build a studio in the backyard. I didn't know this, but Palpatine designed Darth Vader's armor to hurt him, and that's to fuel his rage and his dark side power.
Really?
Yeah. Talk about a toxic mentor.
He was always upset and angry, but it never occurred to me it was from pain.
Yep. Well,
I
that's
thought he was in
why.
pain because Obi-Wan cut off all his limbs.
That's exactly why. There's a few fan conspiracy theories out there. I don't know if you've heard of those, but Jar Jar Binks, even though he's considered one of the biggest jokes in the Star Wars franchise, I do like him though. I think he's endearing. But there's a lot of people that think he's a better politician than most of the real world ones. He did get promoted, held office, and convinced the Senate to give emergency powers to Palpatine. That probably was the downfall of the democracy, but hey, he showed up and he did the job.
You know, that was a lot of, I can't say people because they weren't all humans, but a lot of beings to convince to do one thing. That's impressive.
And I guess here's my question on this next one. Do you think Han shot first?
Oh. I don't know that I've ever paid attention to that while watching. It's been a hot minute since I've seen him.
I think he did. I think he did.
Yeah, always.
I just think he's the kind of character that wouldn't just shoot people up. There had to be a threat, you know?
There had to be a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And they pull a gun out, boom. You don't think about that. Just done. So I think he shot first.
Okay. We'll have to go back and watch.
Yeah, I think so. Do you want to dive into the movies a little bit more specific?
I think that'd be fun. Let's do it.
Okay.
How do you even pick what order to go? Do you go in release date or do you do a chronological?
We'll do release date.
Okay.
So the first one released is actually episode 4, and I believe the way they structured these is really cool. But it came out in 1977, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. George Lucas directed it. And this is when we see Luke Skywalker, a young farm boy, joining the Rebel Alliance to fight the Galactic Empire after discovering his father's old droid, R2-D2. And it carried the secret plans to destroy the Empire's superweapon, the Death Star. With the help of Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Chewbacca, Luke begins his journey to become a Jedi and fighting evil. It was significant because this is where it all begins, and it introduced the iconic characters and set up the Jedi versus Sith battle for the ages.
That was, I would say episode 4 is where I understood what was happening, what the characters were doing, and not just watching fun lightsaber battles.
Yeah.
But I was absolutely in love with the droids. I thought C-3PO was amazing and so funny. And he's, to this day, still one of my favorite characters.
Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. This is actually my second favorite. It was directed by Irvin Kershner. The Rebel Alliance is on the run after the destruction of the Death Star. Luke Skywalker seeks out the Jedi Master, Yoda, to train in ways of the Force, while Han Solo and Leia are pursued by the Empire. Meanwhile, Darth Vader reveals a shocking truth. He is Luke's father, and the fight for the galaxy intensifies. This is significant because it's often considered the best Star Wars movie, with the iconic twist and darker, more intense tone.
I would agree. It is a fantastic movie. It's tied for favorites for me, so I'll tell you what my favorite one is as we start going, or tied for favorite. But I think we were lost a little bit by being born a little bit later and watching it after we had the fact that Vader was Luke's father already revealed to us. I can only imagine being in the theater and seeing that for the first time, how much of a shock that would have been.
Yeah.
In a way that you don't get twists very often. I can only think of a handful of times, like Planet of the Apes and The Sixth Sense, where I watched it and it completely changed how I viewed the movie. And I think this would have been the same had we watched it pre-spoiler.
That is the coolest thing about movies is you go on a journey and sometimes at the end they can reveal something that makes the entire thing make sense or make it make no sense.
Yeah, it does.
And then you go into deep dives. My favorite thing Jackie does is deep dive. We watched The Shining and she told me, I didn't even really like that. Then she spent 3 weeks researching the thing, and I think she knows more about it than the director. But that's just something that sometimes films will just sit with you. And it is my second in the movie, and I think it really is exactly for what they say. It's got a nice darker tone. It seems like it's taking it more serious.
Right, you're delving more into the story because you have the world set up from the first one.
Yep,
and I like that
exactly.
part. You're moving it along a little bit more.
And it's not chintzy, you know.
No, not at all.
Then the one that you saw first in the Best Buy, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, that is directed by Richard Marquand, and it's the final showdown between the Rebels and the Empire. Luke Skywalker confronts Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, while the Rebel Alliance launches a defensive attack on the Empire's second Death Star. Luke's final battle with his father reveals the potential for redemption. And it wraps up the original trilogy with a victory for the Rebels, the fall of the Empire, and the redemption of Darth Vader.
It does. And I used to discuss with my brother constantly because I saw the redemption of Darth Vader and he didn't. So it was always interesting to take points out of the movie and try and prove that you were right. I still think I was right. But to this day, I'm not 100% sure that he believes me.
You were for sure right.
I also have a very warm place in my heart because this was part of the first one I saw. And I think the Ewoks are just adorable.
They are kind of cute.
Although when I was little, I thought they were like teddy bears, and I watched it later, and they were pretty vicious.
I thought that about Gremlins, too.
I've not seen that movie yet.
Oh my gosh, let's do that right now.
Okay, pause.
Now we're back. No, we didn't.
Gremlins was great, but we didn't actually stop. We'll add it to the list.
I guess I didn't say when they came out.
Well, do it now.
Yeah. So New Hope, 1977, Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Return of the Jedi, 1983.
So a trilogy within about 6 years.
Yep, exactly. My bad. I'm sorry I left that out. We've jumped quite a few years to 1999 when Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, comes out. George Lucas is the director. You've got Jedi Knights Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. They discover a young boy, Anakin Skywalker, who may be the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. Meanwhile, the Sith, thought to be extinct, return with a dark plot to bring down the Republic. The Trade Federation invades the peaceful planet of Naboo, leading to a galactic crisis. It's significant because the prequel trilogy kicks off introducing Anakin Skywalker and exploring the early days of the Republic and the rise of the Sith. And it's funny because I was showing this one to Angie's kids, and they really enjoyed it, but they were wanting to see Darth Vader.
So bad. They had no interest in these characters.
Yeah.
Which is probably why George Lucas started with Episode 4 when he originally filmed them in that order.
Definitely, because I think if this would have been the first one, no way would they have kept going.
And I don't disagree with you, but I am probably the only person on the planet who this is their favorite movie. I love The Phantom Menace. I also love The Empire Strikes Back. They're very close, depends on the day which one I'll tell you is my favorite. But The Phantom Menace to me is so interesting because they take Obi-Wan, who is ghost training Luke Skywalker later, and you get to see him younger in his prime, and you see where Anakin starts. And I love Qui-Gon Jinn. I think he's just making terrible decisions, but fascinating to watch. Naboo reminded me of Italy. It was the first time I got to see Star Wars in a big theater. And when Maul came out with those double lightsabers, my mind was blown. I thought it was one of the coolest scenes I had ever seen down in that, I don't even know where it was, some kind of shaft where they had drops and holes and levels you could fall down. It seems like a terrible design, terrible engineers in Naboo. But to me, it brought these really, probably the feelings that younger people in the 70s when they watched it for the first time got. That's what it did for the characters for me because I was in my teens and I just really resonated with that movie.
Well, and I think you have the nostalgia factor too.
That too, yes.
Because this is my second to last favorite
No
of all of them.
one likes it. I am definitely the minority here.
Yeah, exactly. The next one that came out, Episode 2 in 2002, that's my least fave of all of them. That was directed by George Lucas. Anakin Skywalker, now an apprentice Jedi, and Padme. Anakin Skywalker, now an apprentice Jedi, and Padme, now a senator, investigate an assassination attempt. As the Clone Wars begin, tensions rise, and Anakin's growing attachment to Padme leads him towards dangerous decisions. Meanwhile, the Sith continue to manipulate galactic politics. The movie shows Anakin's turn towards the dark side and sets up the birth of the Clone Wars.
So I would agree. I also didn't like this one as well. And it's interesting because with the first trilogy, the second movie was the most beloved out of probably all 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to this one, and it's rare that people say they like it. This one felt more like movie filler to me. We have to get the story along. We have to show what direction Anakin's going in this love story and this darkness that's within him. But it wasn't as exciting as I wanted it to be.
I think this one felt the most chintzy
It
of
did.
all of them,
yeah,
too.
very chintzy, especially the love story.
Yeah, and it was out of place. Not that love stories shouldn't be in certain storylines, because it makes sense occasionally, and you need to have a reason why people care about certain things. But in this particular world and how they used the love story, it didn't hit the way it could have.
Right. And I understand why they had to set up the love story,
Yeah.
or you wouldn't have Luke and Leia later. So they had to prove there's a good part of Anakin where he was able to start a family. But the way they did it was too chintzy for me, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, that definitely.
My bar is set quite low for that.
Yeah, you wouldn't even believe how many Hallmark Christmas movies she records on our DVR every year.
I don't start until November, which I think is impressive because my mom watches them year round. So I think 2 months out of the year is a good compromise. And I watch them when she's out of the house, so she doesn't have to watch with me.
In 2005, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith comes out. George Lucas is directing this one again. As the Clone Wars come to a close, Anakin Skywalker is seduced by the dark side of the Force and becomes Darth Vader. He betrays the Jedi Order. The Republic falls and the Empire is born, with Emperor Palpatine taking control. Meanwhile, the galaxy is plunged into darkness as Padme dies, giving birth to Luke and Leia. The tragic downfall of Anakin and the rise of the Empire marks the end of the prequel trilogy.
It does. And what I found interesting about this is that Anakin falls to the dark side because of his love. He loves something so much that it scared him into losing it, and he ended up falling to the dark side, which is something that the Jedi don't typically have relationships with. And I think that's a risk they have, is that they would be too possessive of things and potentially flip from light to dark.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting. I remember being so excited to see this film and just to see, we knew Anakin became Darth Vader, but how did it happen? So the first time I saw it, I was fascinated and I was excited and kind of got a high watching it. But I'd say after the fact, now that I know what happens, I don't enjoy it quite as much as some of the others on rewatch.
Sure.
What are your thoughts seeing how you didn't have that excitement coming in and you watched it later in life?
I liked this one the best of all 3 of the prequel trilogy.
Okay, what about it?
I thought that it had enough substance, and it did do the reveal of how he became Darth Vader, which was exciting to me, not really knowing what was happening. And it was a little bit more interesting than him as a child, and way more interesting than the love story.
He was just too whiny in episode 2. I couldn't even enjoy watching him.
Exactly.
I was sad to see the Jedi be destroyed because I love that as a culture and I think it's so interesting, which is probably why I like episode 1 so much. And it was kind of heartbreaking to see him slaughtering children.
Yep.
You can definitely see how far he fell.
For sure. Then, 10 years later, 2015, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. My favorite of all time. I love this one. But I think it could be the fact that this was the first one I was able to watch in the theater, which has an impact.
It does.
And BB-8 was in here. And I really like Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron reminds me of like a really good fighter pilot. He'd be like the Blue Angel pilot
Bring it back to your love of the Navy.
of the Star Wars universe, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
And he has a really cool jacket. Like that's fun. J.J. Abrams directs this one. It takes place 30 years after the fall of the Empire. The First Order, a new fascist regime, rises. A scavenger named Rey discovers her connection to the Force, and she joins the Resistance, led by Leia, to fight against the First Order and its leader, Kylo Ren. Meanwhile, Han Solo returns to help them. It introduces a new generation of heroes and villains, revives the saga with a new mystery surrounding Rey's origin. I really, really liked it. I feel like it was pretty effective how they were able to play it out.
I agree. And I loved that they brought back some of the old characters, but then introduced some new ones that we were able to fall in love with again. So I love Rey too. I love Poe. I think BB-8's so cute and just makes it fun to watch. And it brought Star Wars to a brand new audience. And I'd argue that you're a part of that because that was the first one you saw on the big screen.
And I think that the fact that you've got so many years in between when they started it and now, even though they revolutionized practical effects back then, I just think that the scope was much larger because they have the ability to have it.
It did feel bigger in scope. That is true. And they've created this world that maybe there was more to know about because they've had so many movies and they had the entire episode of the Clone Wars that we were able to be exposed to more things and understood how big the world was.
Yeah, exactly.
So time probably helped with that too, but technology absolutely did.
Yep.
But this one was really fun. There's nothing in here that I didn't enjoy watching. And I really like that they had the new generation, so it kind of set forward to moving on.
It did set off a BB-8 collection.
Oh my goodness, yes. We have BB-8 everything in this house. You name it, if it was created, it was at one point in this house.
Yeah. BB-8.
Not in a bad way. He is really cute. And good thing we bought stuff then because now there's not much out.
I got to build a BB-8 at Disney as well. That was really fun. You get to pick all the parts.
And it would interact. It had like a little remote control and you could put it in a backpack and you could take the backpack so the head could be seen. Like you could unzip part of the backpack. And BB-8 would interact with certain things throughout the park.
And characters.
And it was one of the neatest things, which Dippy didn't even get to see because she was wearing it as a backpack.
I was really scared though when Kylo Ren came out and I was trying to hide the backpack in a bush because I didn't want to get caught by him, which I know is ridiculous because I'm an adult and I know that they're not actually going to hurt me, but it felt so real because you're in this environment that they've built that I thought, well, I'm going to end up in jail and it's not going to be good.
The actors that portray those characters are spot on. They do create that terror.
Yeah, and he was big and menacing. I was like, if he sees that I have this little droid, I'm screwed.
And they get the stormtroopers too. They get mad at you if you're harboring the Rebel Alliance, and
yeah, it's nuts.
They do it. It's very interactive.
Yep.
And I'm glad that the Bush saved BB-8.
I know. What would we have done?
Made another appointment and gotten a new one.
That was also an interesting trip because we made a lightsaber and we made a BB-8, and the airport around Disneyland is very familiar with those things. But we weren't flying back out of LA because we were going to Arizona. And I thought to myself, oh great, the Arizona airport TSA, they're not going to let me through even though I have pre-check. And I looked it up on the internet, and the funny thing is there's a Jedi Academy right in Phoenix, Arizona. We got through no problem.
What are the chances of that?
It's actually easier to get through TSA with a lightsaber than it is to get through with 3 ounces of liquid. It's so crazy. Do they not know what can actually hurt people?
They don't respect the kyber crystals.
They don't, geez. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, came out in 2017. It was directed by Rian Johnson, famous for the Knives Out series. The plot, Rey seeks training from Luke Skywalker, who is reluctant to return to the fight. The Resistance is being hunted by the First Order as Kylo Ren struggles with his allegiance. Meanwhile, Rey tries to uncover the truth about her parentage and the fate of the Force. It's a divisive entry in the saga. It explores themes of failure, destiny, and legacy. It turns some established Star Wars tropes on their head. And I think maybe that's why some people don't like it.
Yeah, if you're kind of going in expecting a little bit of the same, I could see why it wouldn't be your favorite. I enjoy watching Kylo Ren. I thought he was a really good, interesting character. And again, shows that good versus evil, where he's on the evil side, but kind of coming to terms with maybe he's not 100% evil.
I really liked the fight that they had in the salt flats.
Yes.
The red that was coming through, that was a really cool part.
That is one of the neatest scenes I remember watching.
Yep, exactly.
I did struggle a little bit with what they did with Luke Skywalker, because in my mind, it feels off canon that he would have tried to kill Kylo when he was little. I understand that he doesn't want evil, but I struggled with that a little bit. I felt like my best friend made a bad mistake.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, with the whole themes of failure and destiny, did that decision push Kylo in the direction that he went? Did that cause him to become more evil than he would have been? No one will ever know. It's not real, but it does just make you wonder.
It does make you wonder. Well, let's finish off the last of the main.
All right.
You've got episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This one, we have the return of director J.J. Abrams. The final battle between the Resistance and the First Order takes place. Rey's true heritage is revealed, and she must face Emperor Palpatine, who has returned from the dead. Rey and Kylo Ren's destinies collide, and the Skywalker legacy reaches its dramatic conclusion. It brings closure to Rey's journey and addresses the legacy of the Jedi and the Sith. I love that battle on the ship.
Yes, it was epic. It was so fun to watch. And I like that they brought force healing to this movie. You don't get to see that a whole lot beforehand. And I just thought that was a neat way to end the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So I enjoyed that. I also liked how they brought all the characters back and you got to see a little bit of them.
Agree.
Because they had some really neat ones in this trilogy that I enjoyed watching.
So good.
But I felt like it was a good conclusion to this trilogy, but it also kind of wrapped up the first 9 in a way.
Yep.
And I liked it.
I liked it too. I know it's controversial. A lot of people don't like the last 3, but 7, 8, 9, but I love it. I just think part of it, though, is seeing it fresh and new.
It is, because you viewed it in a different place in life.
Yep, exactly.
And same thing with me. Some of my favorites are ones that true hardcore Star Wars fans would laugh me out of the house because they would think I was so ridiculous. But the nice thing about having so many movies is that each and every one is probably someone's favorite for whatever reason. And it gives that wide scope where you can find the thing that you like the most.
Yep. They had a couple offshoot movies. In 2016, Rogue One came out, and that has more of a darker tone, and it's grounded in the Star Wars story to connect directly to the events of the original trilogy. And the group of rebels steal plans for the Death Star, leading to its destruction in A New Hope. That was a really cool offshoot story to kind of give you some context.
It gave context. It broadened the world. I thought it was a part of a new trilogy because I did no research going in, and was quite sad at the end when no one survived.
Yeah, exactly.
Did not expect that piece.
It's really gritty.
It's very gritty.
A lot of action.
But it's also really good.
Yeah, it was. It was directed by Gareth Edwards, which I don't know a lot about him.
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah. Well,
to get him on our director project list.
Still not going to know.
We're going to teach you nothing.
Then in 2018, so a year after episode 8, came Solo, which was directed by Ron Howard, which we know and love. And it's the origin story of Han Solo, showing his early life, how he met Chewbacca, how he became a smuggler we know and love. I really like it, and explore the relationship between Lando and him and the beginnings of the Millennium Falcon. I really, really enjoyed the early days of one of the most iconic Star Wars characters.
And I did too, but I'd say we're also in the minority there because Solo it wasn't well received. And I don't understand why, because I love Ron Howard. I love Han Solo. It was fascinating to me to see his origin story because you know in episode 4 kind of the things that he does, right? And to see how he got there, I really enjoyed. I thought it was well done.
I wonder if people just didn't like it because it wasn't Harrison Ford. People are weird like that.
That was hard,
Yeah,
but Harrison Ford approved of the
Yeah.
acting cast, of the casting.
exactly.
But it was hard not to have him in that role.
I think they did a good enough job, though.
I do, because I would have rather seen it this way with a new, younger actor than to have taken some kind of CG effect.
Yep, agreed.
That wouldn't have been the same.
So let's fast forward to today. The Star Wars universe is bigger than ever. Disney acquired Lucasfilm. We've seen new waves of films, television series, and books that have expanded the galaxy. The Mandalorian, for example, brought us Grogu, which has become an overnight cultural phenomenon. Then there's Ahsoka, The Bad Batch, and Andor, which just came out season 2 on Disney+. And that dives into the grittier, more grounded side of the rebellion. Also looking forward to new movies like Rogue Squadron and Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi. Those will be fun. So now that we've talked a little bit about the past, the present, and the legacy of Star Wars, let's talk about how you can celebrate May the 4th. Some people will be rewatching the films or hosting parties. And if you're lucky, you might even get some special Star Wars Day deals and discounts from various retailers. I know Roosevelt's has some sales. And May the 4th celebration, how are you going to be celebrating? We going to do anything fun tonight?
I don't know. I have a Star Wars cookbook and I thought it would be fun to do something. But one of our local pizza places has a May the 4th be with you celebration. And so if kids show up in their cute little Star Wars shirts, they get a prize. And they have prizes for best costumes.
I'm down.
It might be fun to go and just kind of watch and see what our community is doing.
And if you're at home or with a group, it's the perfect time to get creative and show off your fandom. Whether it's lightsaber duels, making your own Star Wars cosplay, or just having a conversation about the Force. May the 4th is all about celebrating what makes Star Wars so special. And thank you so much for introducing me to it.
I am so glad that I came into your life for that reason alone.
Well, that's it for today's special May the 4th episode of Dippy Does Star Wars. We hope we've helped fuel your Star Wars enthusiasm and given you some ideas for your own celebrations. Whether you're a Jedi, a Sith, or somewhere in between, today's the day to embrace the Force and enjoy all the magic of the Star Wars universe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Dippy_does. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, and share this episode with your fellow fans and friends. Remember, the Force will be with you, always.